You're listening to Real with Coach Herb and B, a podcast that brings you community and culture with your host, Coach Herb and B.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Coach Herb, and always joined by my homegirl B and Mr. Ben in the background, and we're joined by Lauren. Hi, Lauren, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Thank you for coming on.
Yes, welcome, Lauren. Yes.
And I'm sure Lauren's going to tell us all about all the great things that she does and give us a little background on her.
Give us a little rundown on what your business is. Yep. Exactly.
And who you are and all that good stuff. So now the floor is yours, Miss Lauren.
All right. Well, thank you. My name is Lauren Gassman. I am a resident of Leesburg, and I'm a mom of 3. So you might hear one of them whimpering in the background.
Yes.
Yeah. But I actually have a background in exercise science and public health.
Okay.
I am and was, I guess, a group exercise instructor and personal trainer.
All right.
I have a sports background and love what the Y does. And then I kind of took what I learned from public health and applied it to a problem that I saw in my community, a lack of composting options. So then I created this business about a year ago to solve that problem, and it has become this really amazing, surprising grassroots movement that I'm very proud of. My 4th baby, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So I live in a,
right?
I'm like, I have never compost before.
Yeah, I don't
so I don't even know what that life is. And I'm excited
I've heard of it,
to
but I
learn.
don't, I've heard of it before. I've never really,
Yeah.
And you got a whole yard and everything.
Right. It sounds like, so I guess you're going to basically kind of teach us about, and then also, maybe convince us.
Sure.
There you go.
Start composting there's plenty we can do together.
Okay.
So I guess we'll start at the beginning with what is compost and why is it important? And I guess also how we came to this point. So like I said, I'm a resident of Leesburg, but only since last year. Before that, we lived in Winchester. I'm just basically lived all over Northern Virginia. But when we lived in Winchester, we had, a bit more space, and my husband grew up in a composting family, as his mother-in-law likes to remind me. So that's how I was first introduced to composting. I had never done it before. Just know you're supposed to, because you put the food scraps somewhere and then something happens and then you can put it in your garden. That's the extent of my knowledge. When we composted in Winchester, yeah, exactly. And when we lived in Winchester, my husband said, we should start a compost pile. And I was like, yeah, honey, you go do that. Here's some scraps. Do whatever you're going to do. Mm-hmm. And turns out he didn't really know exactly what he was doing. He was a composter that we run across a lot, which is, I don't know, I just put my food scraps back there and something happens. I don't know if it's breaking down or an animal's eating it, but something's happening. It's not going to the trash. Okay. So that's mostly what people do and know about compost. Okay. Like I said, that's what I knew about compost. Mm-hmm. So then, as we were approaching our move to Leesburg, my husband and I were talking a lot about climate change because that new report came out that there was only 10 years left before, the amount of carbon in our atmosphere really starts to impact what's happening with our environment. So every single day it was climate change. What do we do? What's happening? Nothing we do makes a difference. La la la. But I was listening to a podcast with my children, and they had said, something simple that everyone can do to help the planet is compost. Mm-hmm. I was like, duh, when we lived in Winchester, we composted, let's do that. Yeah. Except we live in a townhouse, so how am I going to compost, and where is this compost going to go?
Right.
So I hopped on Google, and I was trying to find composting in Loudoun County, and there was nothing. Like absolutely nothing, except for maybe commercial composting, and like large scale landscaping type composting. And then I found, just after a lot of research, seeing what best practices were, putting my public health hat on, I realized, okay, this is not totally unheard of finding somebody who will take my food scraps, do the right thing with them, and off we go. But since there was nothing like that in my area, I didn't want to just let the idea die.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, oh, but I've already come up with this idea, and like there's all these examples with how to do it. How hard could it be? It's pretty simple. Let's just do it. And so Foodloop was born after all of that. So thanks to the internet and lots of examples and social media, I thought, okay, I can totally handle this. I can start a composting business. Let's go. So back to, I guess, what is compost and why did I think, yeah, I can handle this.
Right.
So like I mentioned, composting is getting your food waste, which is known as green matter, and mixing it or putting it in layers with brown matter. And brown matter are things like wood chips or your mulched leaves, things that are brown. And those are your carbon heavy things. And so when you layer properly carbon and nitrogen, your brown and green, and you layer and layer and layer, you get to a certain volume. We can go deeper if you want, but once you get to a certain volume, all the microbes that are naturally there in your wood chips and your food waste start to mingle, and they start to reproduce, and it gets really hot, and they make more microbes, and all those microbes need energy to reproduce and make more of themselves, and all that energy they get from breaking down your green matter and brown matter.
Okay.
And so the product of all of that is compost, which is a very nutrient dense substance that you mix with your topsoil that you can sprinkle on your garden or sprinkle on your lawn. Yeah, and so all of those nutrients go back to the earth, and then it grows again and you can make more compost. So that is also what the food loop refers to.
Now, when you say on your lawn,
yes.
I don't want my grass getting mushrooms and other stuff. So what do you mean by you can sprinkle it on your lawn? So it's basically fertilizer.
It is in a way, yeah. And it's a natural fertilizer. So that mix of nitrogen and carbon is what plants and grass need to grow.
Okay.
So you're bringing all that back. And so that also, that point is also why composting is important, because it's something that naturally occurs. Like eventually all those leaves outside will break down, right? And all those nutrients that are still in those leaves go back to the earth, go back to the planet. So instead of buying chemical fertilizers that have lots of other things in it that run off into the streams and whatnot, all the compost that we make or that you would make at home, it's all just from food. It's all good stuff. So you're not introducing anything bad.
Some good stuff. There's some food that you shouldn't probably even recycle yourself.
You're right. That is also a good point.
So I hate to go dive deeper into this, but are we talking about if you just say you go eat out and you go and get some Thai food or whatever, right? And whatever's left you put in there, and then also mix it in with your brown matter. And so that food that you had, that's okay to put in the compost?
Yes and no. So the only reason I say so yes is that most of those things come from plants,
right?
And not to say that you can't compost animal products or dairy or oil or those things, but it does make it a little more complicated, and it does introduce, it just makes it trickier for the compost to break it down. So then people are more likely pests and rodents are more likely to be attracted to it if your compost isn't hot and kicking the way it's supposed to be. So for a home composter who's not very sure, not very confident about what they're doing, I would not recommend cooked food. Generally, what we accept is food scraps from preparing your meals. So your carrot peels.
Here we go. Now.
Dead flowers even, yeah. So all of your green matter that would be easy to do is anything that came from a plant. Seed.
All right.
Nothing like rice.
Uncooked. when I
You can do
sliced up
rice
my
and like
onions and
noodles and things like that.
Yeah, you can do rice and
Oh,
noodles, bread. If things have molded, that's
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
okay, and so like peeled my potatoes, whatever.
Yeah.
The peeling, I need to put in a separate container to compost,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so with compost, it usually likes when you like if you were to build a compost pile at home, um, generally you want to put it in a big bulk because I don't know, but for some reason the compost doesn't like it when there's just a little bit. It's like feed me a lot. Give me a
Okay.
lot at once. It doesn't like to snack. It likes to kind of buffet.
Mhm.
Right.
So yeah. And then on the note of buffet, compost also like variety. So there's a lot out there of can I compost my lemon peels, my orange peels? Because there's a lot of, you know,
Yeah, my banana peels, my mango
Yeah, does
peels.
it make a
yeah, yeah. So you
difference?
want
Yeah.
to have a nice variety of things.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I don't do this because we have such a volume of things, but the pH of your compost is something to consider. So if there's like only lemon peels, your compost might have a hard time. So just like you with, your own nutrition, you don't want to only eat lemons. You got to eat other
Right.
things too.
Yeah.
So you just want to keep your compost diverse so that everything's happy.
So basically, I gotta get another trash can.
Yeah.
That I'm
But
gonna
I'm
put.
glad you mentioned that. So there are lots of different containers out there that you can use to store your compost. There are really fancy ones that have a carbon filter to prevent the smell. But
Mm-hmm.
honestly, any container that has a tight sealing lid, you're fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Especially if your food waste is in your house where it's probably cool. There's really nothing that's going to attack it. There aren't really fruit flies even that are. I mean, we have fruit flies in our house, but they're not going after the compost bucket. They're
Right.
going after the bananas that are sitting, on the counter
Yeah.
that the kids have not
Yeah.
eaten yet.
Right.
So even if you're like, okay, I know I'm going probably way too far, and Ben is probably like, what the hell? This is one of the problems is that I tend to start to
But these
jabber
are
away, and
questions
I
that
he
people
gets
are
he
thinking
I
gets
of.
know and
excited
then stuff
about
just
it,
pop
you
in my
know?
head. So
Yeah.
like right now I have like bananas, and I didn't eat them all, so there's a few of them that are like kind of like on the dead end
Uh-huh.
basically. So I can just throw that in the compost, right?
Yes, but what I would encourage you to do instead is if you're a smoothie kind of guy or a banana bread kind of guy, try to see how you can
Save
reuse.
the
Yeah,
right.
exactly. So
Mm-hmm.
as much as composting is great, it's kind of the last ditch effort
Okay.
to reduce waste.
So
So the
so you want
first
to guess basically the peels.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, not that you can't compost a whole banana. You
Okay.
definitely can. People
Okay.
throw in
Right.
whole apples, whole potatoes, whole onions. That sometimes I'm like, why are you composting this? This looks great.
Right.
Some people are like, oh, it's been in my fridge too long,
Okay.
but it's still edible. Anyway,
Right.
so what I mean is for as far as the life cycle of a piece of food goes and how we dispose of things,
Hmm.
composting is kind of the last effort.
Okay.
What you want to do first is try to,
Yeah.
exactly like you said,
Well,
reduce waste.
because we always have that clean out the fridge moment.
Sure. And
So that's
sometimes
what
it's
I was
not salvageable, but yeah, you
Yeah.
can definitely put in a whole banana, a whole anything.
Oh yeah.
And it feels a lot better.
Whole
So
bag of lettuce that's been sitting there that's now wilted. So,
exactly. Yeah.
okay.
And
All
so, like, to your
right.
point of having a separate trash,
Yeah.
what a lot of our customers have told us, and as I've experienced, our household trash is so small now. Like, we change the bag out maybe, 1.5 times a week or maybe once a week, whereas
Okay.
before it was like, multiple
Yeah.
bags in a week.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, a lot of food waste getting thrown away.
Yeah.
Could
So now
could
now I'm
I
starting
do it like at my apartment? I know
Um,
it's like very tight and like small, whichever, but like,
yeah. So, if you wanted to compost in your apartment,
mhm.
yeah. There are, okay, so to be 100% transparent, my lane of knowledge is hot composting.
Yeah.
But I know that there are other systems out there that are designed for smaller spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like this Japanese one that whatever the little microbe is that does it can do meat bones. It can do the dairy. It can do the oil. You can put anything in it. So you just have to do a little more research in that regard. Yeah. So then for me, I was like, it's okay. I'll just do.
Yeah, because I have plants or whatnot on my balcony that I try to take care of, right? But
hey,
that's what makes me excited about it, is like, I could definitely use this, because we have space. We have space, and we were talking about a garden. So
yes.
Yeah, so that would definitely be helpful to start, doing the vegetables and the tomatoes and all of that good stuff that I would like to see in the backyard versus weeds. I'd rather see a garden versus weeds. Let's just put it that way. So
I would be happy to teach you more, like at your house, how to layer it, how to do it. Because I've been doing it enough that I know how, but there's a lot of ways. Well, it's interesting. With compost, there's a lot of ways it could go wrong, but one, compost is very forgiving, and two, there's only so many variables to manipulate. So just to go back to how you compost, like we mentioned, there's the green matter, that's your nitrogen. You have the brown matter, which is your carbon. And then you also need water and air. So if you've seen those the plastic composters that roll, the reason why you're rolling it is to make it easier to flip your compost. And flipping it just means literally, it's nice when you have a compost that you have two different containers. So all of your brown matter and green matter are layered. And then you're literally going to scoop and flip into the bin right next to it. That way, everything that was on the top goes on the bottom, everything kind of on the outside goes to the inside to the outside. And that's to incorporate air into your compost so that your microbes can breathe, because they are aerobic. So they need oxygen. And then you also don't want it too moist. Yeah, exactly. Exercise science. So it all goes back to that. And then it needs water so that the microbes can move. But you don't want too much water, because then it gets that's when it starts to smell. That's when it gets yucky. So you can tell if your pile's been neglected, if it smells weird and it's too wet, or so usually if it's too wet or it's smelly.
And then what do you do with it?
In that situation, in particular, you would probably add more brown matter. The chips, the leaves, because that'll help absorb the water. And it will help give your pile more structure so that there's more air that can breathe, so that more air can circulate.
So you have to be if you kind of like want to stick with like
like what mulch do you get?
You stick with, you don't go to the Home Depot. Sorry, Home Depot.
Or do you go to the Home Depot?
We never have, because I am friends with an arborist. So when he takes down trees, he's got all the wood chips, right? And so as a landscaper, if he's going to the landfill, he has to pay, what is it called? Oh my gosh, the fee, right? The tipping fee. And, that's a lot of wood chips, which he would rather give to me, because
because you're going to use
them. I'm going to use them. And there are companies out there, or there's a company called, or maybe it's a nonprofit, it's called Chip Drop.
Chip Drop?
Yeah, Chip Drop.
Write and you that down, man.
Yes. And you can
are you still there?
I'm here taking notes.
Okay.
Thanks, Ben. So you can go to Chip Drop and you can request wood chips to be dropped off at your property for free. Yeah, so it's a great
chips.
Yeah. And like my dad, he has a wood burning stove.
Hey, husband.
I'm sorry. Oh, say hi.
You say your dad has a wood burning stove?
Yeah.
Like he uses
he converted their chimney to be a wood burning stove. So that in the winter they just do wood. Anyway, my only reason bringing that up is he calls, the local arborist over there, and they're more than happy to give him wood.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like firewood.
Yeah, for firewood. Yeah. Wow. So don't buy wood chips if you don't have to.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This guy's driving through our neighborhood trying to sell us wood, and I could be just calling somebody to get wood chips and wood delivered
That's right.
for free.
I know a guy. I heard you
I
know
do all
guys.
the
You're the kind
time.
of guy that knows a lot of guys. So yeah.
I know a lot of
Correct.
guys, but I don't know
He
that many
always
guys,
knows a
I
guy.
guess. I'm like gonna have to step it up a little bit.
That's right.
Oh.
I know that was, that was good information. Now I'm like, okay, now I have to explain it to the wife. That's why I need the notes, Ben.
Gotcha.
Because she's gonna be like, what? We're
Well,
gonna do what?
and so that's where I guess that's where Foodloop, my business, comes in. Just because, not every family is like, yeah, let's go out there with our pitchfork and do the whole brown matter and the green matter and do
Right.
all this stuff. It is
Because
a
I get
lot
a
to
lot of
do.
leaves. I get a
Yeah.
lot of leaves.
Oh yeah. So instead of giving your leaves and having it picked up, you
Yeah.
can mulch them or just run them over with your lawnmower,
Mhm.
collect them, and you can use those throughout the year.
And then
Yeah,
use them.
and then you don't have to have this huge thing of wood chips coming to your house because it can be a lot sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
Man,
so
I'm getting
interesting.
like all this knowledge. I'm about to save some serious coin.
You will. I'm giving you all the secrets for how to compost.
Yeah.
Like, how many people do you need to do all?
Great question. So when I started
Yes.
the business back in, I incorporated I started the LLC in October, and then November, I found out I was pregnant with this one. So the wheels were already in motion. It was already happening. I already had a subscriber or two. And I was like, well, we'll just keep going until we can't. And thankfully, I was at the farmer's market when I started just kind of advertising for free, accepting food scraps for free, just to kind of get people in the habit of collecting their food waste and whatnot.
Right.
Just through networking, volunteers have come forward. I haven't even put out an advertisement for people to volunteer. They just come because I guess composting has spoken to a lot of people who have been looking for a service like this, so they want to
Right.
help. Anyhow, I think
Yeah.
at this point we have 12, 13, 14, kind of a rolling number of volunteers who help me get it all done.
And
Yeah.
that's
So it's
awesome.
really great.
We're over here looking for one volunteer to do
Do we
something.
have one, Mr. Research? Do we have one in Reston?
So Lauren's company has a drop point over right near enough to your wife's salon in Herndon at the tea shop.
Yes.
At the what shop?
At the tea shop, just up the
Elgin
street.
Lord
Street.
Jesus. Herb.
It's a fairly new tea shop, I guess, like about a year or two now, but I think it's a year.
It's like Eldon Tea Shop.
Yeah,
Or
it's
something
Eldon
like
Street
that, right?
Tea, and she's
Oh,
on Pine
Yeah.
Street.
Yeah, so
maybe
real
she
close to
is-
the salon.
My wife.
See,
Yeah. And then also
I
kind of down
know.
the road from you on Sunset Hills
Okay.
is Beloved Yoga, where we have another food waste drop off. So if
maybe that
you
one's close.
are trying to convince the wife and she's like, I don't think I want this in my backyard, you can still collect the food waste and then drop it off at our location. Or we make a drop off location at the Y, and then it comes to you.
We
And
do
then I
have a
just
garden.
We do have a garden. Ben, I like you. Look at that.
Look at
We
that.
have
You could
some
either be a drop-off
boxes.
location or the
Connecting-
composting could happen there. So just
Connecting the dots. Oh, the woven.
Right? Look at that.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that I had was because Herb knocked out like half of the things that I had on my list, which is totally great because we've gone now for about like 20 minutes, so I just didn't have to ask all of them, which is even better for me.
Yes.
When it comes to the composting, if someone is using your service, do the compost have to come back to them? Are they able to just donate it? Maybe say if it's like Bianca and she doesn't need a ton of compost because she only has but a few plants in her house and not a yard, could she then just say, hey, donate it, give it to a garden or a place that needs it, or does it have to come back to her since she was the one who contributed to the compost pile?
right. So no, it doesn't have to go back to her. She can have as much as she wants or as little, just because, we say that you can have at least 2 shares of compost, which is a 5-gallon bucket of compost, since that's kind of the container that we use for everything, ends up being a cubic foot. Anyway, you are welcome to claim as much compost as you want, or you can say, nope, don't need it, just want to donate it. And I'm in the process of making partnerships with farms and other homesteads who would use the compost. So actually in Great Falls near you guys, I've just finished chatting with Melissa, who owns Old Soul Flower Farm. Okay. They do flowers and they do duck eggs. And she is going to be one of our donation partners. So you could say, I want you to donate it to her, or you could donate it to a homestead that we've partnered with in Lovettsville. So you can kind of decide what you want to do with it. Or you can, collect it for Herb and say, here, Herb, here's my compost.
Herb has a donation spot now.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to get approved first. But well, if I get approved, I'm all in.
Yes, I like it.
So maybe the Y might be the first venue for him to be able to say, like, look, here it happens there. I'm just bringing a little bit home. Yeah,
exactly.
I have to. She has to have a visual of it, so to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, that drop off's not too far.
We talked about a garden, so it's not like it's far fetched. So,
yay.
And my son is like, you guys need to plant food. I don't know why you're always going to the grocery store. Just plant food.
Is he gonna help you?
No.
Okay.
He likes to say it like, go natural.
I was just checking.
I said, you want to cut the grass? He won't even cut the grass. Talking about go natural.
Well, you better get him out there and cut that grass.
No.
I'm talking like I have grass. I don't even have grass.
Right. If you had grass, you would cut it.
I would not. I don't think I would.
You have children, you can get them to do it. My kids are at the age where they're begging to do chores like that. So
really, what age is that?
My oldest is 5.5, and he so desperately wants to mow our tiny backyard of our townhouse, but he's a little too short for it. So
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. After a while, they're like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to play Fortnite.
So I know schools right now. I know schools right now at the time are closed, but when things are a little bit back to normal and they're having lunch and food things going back on in the school systems, since you mentioned working with local farms and other businesses, are schools maybe another area that you might be considering reaching out to about collecting food waste and kind of maybe doing something like that for the kids in that, especially as they get older and they can actually start to maybe do compost piles at the schools if some aren't already doing that?
Yeah, definitely. So when I first started the company, that was my vision. My vision was to partner with the schools and have a composting hub at each school that had a garden, because they already have the garden and they have the families and they're already coming, and we can collect the food waste. Turns out that is more complicated than I thought it would be.
There's a lot of loopholes in that.
There are, but there is hope if, because what I found was I was trying to go to the top. So I was talking with the facilities director of Loudoun County Schools, and we did not see the same vision because for him, for us to be a waste pickup provider, there's bidding that has to go into place. There's, the proposals and all that stuff. And that was not what I was able to handle. And that is not what I could offer. And that's not what he was willing to do. But if it comes from a school, if it comes from a teacher or an organization that wants it, then we can do it, And to me, though, it sounds like we wouldn't be able to compost at the school because they have all the rules that they have. But if they wanted to start a food waste collection, then we could work with it that way. So that's kind of the approach.
What about restaurants? Small mom and pop restaurants?
Yeah.
Or even bigger ones.
Or even bigger ones, that's true.
Let's start with the small ones. Calm down. Start with the small.
Easy. That was another idea that I had. And like I said, when I started this, it was just me. And I had my 2 kids that I was toting around with me, and I was pregnant. So I was like, how much can I handle by myself?
Right.
And restaurants obviously produce a lot more waste. They would need it picked up a little bit more frequently. So I'm now, and especially because of COVID, that kind of slowed all the restaurants down.
Right.
But now, at least I've started to possibly work with the wine kitchen in Leesburg, and just, get my feet wet with that. But I do have commercial clients, just to shout them out because they are also local businesses. There's Kachani Wellness. They are a juicing company out of Sterling. You can find them at a lot of the farmers markets in the area.
Okay.
There's a company called Nutrimuscle Meals. They're a meal prep service. And they do come out to you guys.
Before. Yeah.
Oh.
Yes. Not that I get that, but I have definitely heard of it before.
Hey,
yes.
I'll tell Tony and Lukey. They'll be so happy. Yeah. There's another meal service called Traveling Tiffin Company. They both cook out of Chefscape, and they deliver Indian food. There's a cookie company called Nashi that we work with. Lots of eggshells, which is great. And then another company called Aromatic Spice Blends, which, as the name indicates, aromatic spices. So starting to delve into restaurants, but that is also another beast just because the nature of food waste and how long can they store it? Where do we store it? How often do they need it? That kind of stuff. But so just
it sounds like you would really have to start being more commercialized as far as dropping something off for them to put it in and you have somebody go pick it up. Like maybe daily, I don't know.
Yeah. So those are the kind of problems that we will solve as they come to us.
I know, but I feel like, even, like in the beginning, you talked about the ozone and all of that stuff. And like, I just don't get how I'm guaranteeing that not in this country, but other countries are probably way ahead of the curve on that. Like, composting and that nature, like doing all they can with not, just having a landfill full of everything. It's just like, I don't get like how you can't, if you feel like you can maybe make fuel out of something, you wouldn't do it like that versus going to dig up some coal or whatever and oil and all that stuff,
Well, what's easier, Herb?
Yeah, where's the money? Right. It's unfortunately what it seems to come down.
The money is in recycling, recycling the energy. But it takes money to make money, and they don't want to spend money. That's the problem.
Yep.
And and as a consumer too, thinking of, well, what's the bottom line? Like how much am I willing to spend on food? How much am I willing to spend on this kind of thing? And other countries, I mean, this is a statistic from a while ago, but just the amount of money other countries spend on food is a lot more of a percentage of their income than what Americans are used to.
Right.
But it's like it's been designed that way for us to expect that food should be cheap.
Yeah.
When, food is so labor intensive.
Food can be very expensive.
Yeah.
Lately we've been getting into the whole, like, we're going to just have a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables and things like that. We will never stay away from bread, but we definitely have been eating a lot more fresher fruits and vegetables.
Good. That's awesome.
And that's why I'm curious about all this, like, smaller composting, because I would love it in my mind. Not that I could ever make it really grow, but have a mini garden on my wall or something like that too.
Yeah, no, you definitely can. I mean, like in our house, in our backyard, it was not me, it was my husband. He built a garden bed, and we planted some carrots, we planted a couple chard plants, and even if that wasn't, if we still had to buy groceries, the fact is it's just there, and seeds cost how much, even if you try and it doesn't work out, and you get like one carrot, it's still exciting. Like it's still the one carrot, and you learn, you can try again. So, there's no harm, even if you're like, I don't know, it's just a wall garden. Hey, if you grew your own basil instead of buying like the $2, little
Yes.
plant every single week, as I have done sometimes,
Correct.
Right.
that's all the packaging, that's the plastic, that's the fuel that it took to get to your grocery store that you didn't have to spend. And it was just like one plant. So, every little victory is still a victory.
You know what I
I'm gonna
heard
go
was
for
very
it.
disappointing to me for some reason. I don't know why I thought like if you planted like, you start to see your onion go and it starts to sprout
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. I thought you could plant that and then you get like 5 onions.
You get
And,
one more onion.
right? And then I found out that you only get one, and I was like, "What? What?
Yeah.
Even though it's a good idea to do it, it was
Yeah.
like, why?
But
Like,
I
why
think,
couldn't it be multiple? Like carrots, I think you could get multiple carrots if you planted a few, right? Or is
no,
it
it's
still
just the
one?
one. Just
Huh?
the one, straight down.
It
Yeah.
just feels like I feel like
Herb would like all of his plants to
yeah,
grow
multiply.
5
You
times
should
more. Yeah,
do
exactly.
you should do leafy greens because you just cut a couple and then they make more. Cut,
Yep.
make more. Herb, you should do herbs. They're perfect
Herbs,
for you.
herbs are the best.
They just keep giving. They just keep going. And you're like, when is this plant going to
That's
die?
what I tell everybody. I just keep giving.
See, you were appropriately named. That's perfect. But then, your question about like, why if I planted an onion, is it only one onion? I think you bring up a good point about just us not really knowing a lot about how food is grown
Right.
and where it comes from. Like we're so disconnected
Yeah.
from the food loop of
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
things grow, how things die, how they come back, that, there's some plants where you're like, that's how a broccoli grows. I had no idea. Like a beet plant is just the one beet. Actually,
I know.
yeah, it's just the one beet,
Yes, it's the one beet.
Yeah.
I used to love beets. My mom used to grow beets, and we would
Beets are
pull
good.
them out and clean them, and
Here's one that you would be happy about, a garlic clove. You plant one garlic clove and then you get a whole head.
oh,
Oh, wait
Yeah.
a minute.
I love garlic.
Wait a minute now. I
Wow,
am
I
into
shouldn't have
that.
thrown that garlic away. Oh, damn.
Each one is a
Oh,
gift.
I didn't even know that.
what?
Great.
See?
Thanks.
Herb, have
Boom.
you?
I
That's
can
not
grow some.
fair. That's not fair. Like the onions
Dang.
way behind. Like onions need to
Well,
get a grip and
The
catch.
onions are behind. Like they know.
So Herb, you have to get into green onions because you can chop the bottom, as Lauren was saying, and put it in water, and it'll actually regrow. So instead of having to always buy new spring or green onions, however you prefer to call them, you can chop it near the base, like where it's white and
Yeah.
the bottom is still in there. Put in a little bit of water, and then just let it sit there for a week or whatever, and you'll start to see it regrow. So eventually
Ben,
it starts to regrow.
what,
Then what the hell, man? You haven't
Ben,
telling us anything.
seriously, dude.
I don't know why I didn't know that, but yep.
Well,
Why
thank you.
Thanks, man.
So good.
Thanks. I've been throwing away all these freaking.
Been throwing, just getting a
Yeah, scallions, green onion, whatever you
Oh
like
my
to call
God, I've been throwing them away, and I could have been like.
it. Yeah,
replanting
regrowing.
them.
Yep. You don't have to plant it. No
We
need
got
to
to
go
get
in
our
dirt.
lives together.
We do. We do. I know we're going on a tangent. I think we're supposed to be talking.
Well,
It's all relevant. It's all food.
I don't have too many more questions, but Lauren, when it comes to the food loop for your business, how long does it take for you to come around and collect, or for your pickup schedule? So I know a lot of people think, oh, it's smelly, and we kind of already dispelled that myth about composting in your house. But how long would I typically need to have the bin in my house for before I could either drop it off to you or have you guys come around and pick it up?
It really depends on how much you cook, how many people are in your household. So for example, we have just decided to give you a 5-gallon bucket or a 2-gallon bucket. It really just depends on how much you're cooking. I've had our bucket sit for like 2 weeks, sometimes 3, even though I'm composting, like I just forget to bring it with me. And it's fine, I mean, it might get a little soggier, but really it's okay. So that's what I would suggest, weekly or bi-weekly. There are some
cool.
families, they have weekly pickup service and it is full. every time. I don't even know what's in there, but I'm just happy that, you know, that 15 pounds or whatever of stuff is not going to the landfill. It's coming to us. And then other people, you know, they're bi-weekly and you just get some coffee grounds and that's it. So
Oh,
it really just depends on your household.
It's probably the more people you have in there, the more you can probably.
Yeah.
I was going to say, well, that actually, that leads me to the next part, because we talked about the businesses and schools and stuff like that. And so my last kind of question, which I think Bianca would be a huge proponent of it as well, would be have communities or neighborhoods reach out to you about doing a compost pile, because more people the merrier. And then also if they're in townhomes or condos that are very small and just don't have the space, then there could make a kind of community area that everybody can go to, as long as you have an into that community.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of, so when I was coming up with Foodloop and figuring out how's this going to work, I did a lot of research on the Institute of Local Self-Reliance, and one of their big initiatives is composting. And so they kind of lay out, this is how you build a community garden. This is how you manage composters, and how all of that's supposed to be run. So that's why starting it, my hope is, wouldn't it be cool if Reston had their own composting hub, and Sterling and Chantilly and Ashburn, and and then even smaller like this HOA in this neighborhood.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and like I said, it's become this grassroots effort that I didn't anticipate, but there was somebody who wanted to be a customer, and then 2 minutes later she said, actually, can I be a drop-off location? Like, I'd be happy to, have a container at my house for a couple hours. So right now, so that one in particular opened up her house on Tuesday evenings from like 4 to 7 p.m. So we bring a container, people come, they drop off their food scraps, they take their container home, and then that's it. Simple. And that's just.
And they're pretty much just dropping off food scraps. They're
Exactly.
not bringing in the other stuff, right?
They're not doing the wood chipping.
Mattresses. Exactly.
Surprisingly, we have not had an issue with those no items. So that's been wonderful. Although one time somebody put in crab legs, like the shells. But that's like one time. That's one out of, the several.
So you kind of have to, put it out there and then put like a list together of.
Yeah. So on our website, we do have a list of compost this, not that, for us.
Cool.
Great.
Well,
thank you so much.
I was about to say thank you.
Yeah.
At the end of every episode, we love to promote small businesses. And tonight you are a small business. So this is the time to just take a moment again and just promote yourself. And we will put all your information down here at the bottom as well. And when we promote your podcast.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for finding us. I'm always tickled when people find out about our company. So I'm so glad that you found us and that you asked me to be on here. Because I think composting is a service that a lot of people are looking for. And they just don't know that it's here now. Hooray. So if people want to find out more, they can go to our website, which is foodloopcompost.com. We are on Facebook, we have at Foodloop Compost, and on Instagram at Foodloop Compost. And I am really active on Instagram stories, and that's usually where I give you updates of, what batch we're on, how we're doing with the compost, what temperature the compost is. That's something we didn't even talk about, but just learning more about the process of composting is where kind of we highlight that. And whether you compost with us or if you compost at home, it's all good. So if you have questions about either thing, I'm really happy to answer any questions you have. I was really proud of one of my customers who decided to end her subscription because she wants to start her own compost at her house. So that is wonderful.
Yes.
People having autonomy and then really taking over, their food scraps and composting. So if anybody is interested in hosting a drop-off location, I am so excited to chat with you. If you know a farm that you would love us to partner with, please let me know. And so thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Lauren. That was really good information. And it kind of got me thinking we need to, promote this more, because I always thought, like everybody else, every ignorant person in the world is it left the smell. So I was like,
Yeah.
do I really want to do that? And,
Yeah. If you're doing it right, it's not, I mean, there is a smell because it is decomposing food, but it's not an unpleasant smell.
okay.
And it's not because I've been desensitized, because I notice it, but it's not unpleasant. You're just like, oh, it's just decomposing. That's it. It's just old. But it is definitely not as bad as your kitchen trash if you're throwing away like chicken thighs or something like that. Since it's all veggie scraps, it's really not unpleasant. And if you do have an unpleasant smell with your compost, then something is off, and I will help you.
Okay,
Nice.
cool.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank
What I need
you.
to do is
Yeah.
get a class, because if you know me, I do not like a mess,
No.
and that goes along with smell.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I would not say put it right next to your house. You do want, a little bit of distance. But if you are starting a garden, having it close by would be helpful.
Right.
You can easily
Right.
add it to your garden. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's not unpleasant. You just gotta
But
do
it's
it.
not going to cause my dogs to go like, what the heck is all that about?
No, because when you layer the food scraps, which is the smelly part, with the brown matter,
Mhm.
as long as you top it off with about 4 to 6 inches of the brown matter, everything stays contained
Okay.
in there. Yeah. So you're
And
good.
the lid seals, so
Oh, I'm sorry, for the compost bucket. Yeah, for inside your
Right.
house. Yeah, as long as you cover it with a lid, it's not going to smell. So usually, what we do when we're prepping our meals is we have an even smaller container, like a one that you would get from takeout, that has a lid, and we usually collect all of the green pepper stems and the seeds and whatever in that smaller container. And then once you're all done cooking, take that, put it in the bigger bucket, close it. That's it. So everything is pretty much sealed all the time. Yeah.
excellent. On
Yeah.
that note,
Yeah.
we are done.
Yes.
And this was very, very good information. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you do, number one, because we need more people like you and more people to take care of our earth, so our children and their children and everybody else can enjoy this earth for at least 2 million more years.
Yes, please.
I don't know. I'm not going to be around, so
But we care about the little.
we care about our
Yes,
kids
the
and their
little
kids
ones.
and
Yeah.
going on. So
Hey.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I think that's all, Mr. Ben. You don't have anything else, do you?
Nope, that was perfect. Thank you so much,
Right.
Lauren, again. And yep, we will see
Yes.
everybody the next time.
Yay! Thank you.
Until next time.
Peace.
The Real to Real podcast is presented by Herbert Williams Befo and Bianca Moskaitis. Our producer is Ben Runyon. Our technical director is Nick Patry. Audio and video lead is Megan Kotner. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow and like us on Facebook and Instagram at Real to Real, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, or anywhere else podcasts are found. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. It's been real with Coach Herb and B.